and another effective one. Matthew breaks a tackle, breaks another, gets a block. There are no flags and the race is on. And Matthew goes 90.
Burrow with the snap. Here comes the blitz. Burrow steps away from it, throws, catch made! Justin Jefferson has it at the 38, racing down the far line, sideline, 10-5, touchdown Tigers!
Another play fake by Burrow, and a deep strike, and an open receiver, Jamar Chase, another touchdown!
Daniels pulls it, takes it himself, he's got the sideline! Jane Daniels off to the races, and a bang back inside, he takes it to the house, 85 yards for Daniel.
Go ahead and say it, Ed.
Go Tigers!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the Gold Standard Podcast. I am your host, Doe. It is an amazing day for Tiger fans all across the nation. Everything that we've endured this season has been for this day, for this purpose. The dream has been fulfilled. But first, make sure you like, share, subscribe to the podcast, turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our episodes that are upcoming. And my, what a time to be a Tiger fan. Hey, play net. Ladies and gentlemen, Lane Kiffin has been announced as the head coach of the LSU Tigers. I told you. And I went on TikTok earlier and got everybody who's in my comments and was saying, he's not going to leave for Florida. Why would he go to LSU? Because of the governor. LSU's not one to pay Brian Kelly. For all you nimwits out there who have no clue about LSU football, what it is, the monster that it is, let today's events show you what the point is. And this is not me speaking as a fan. I'll put it in relationship standards. LSU is one of the only jobs that can go and take a happily married man. Lane Kiffin has been at Ole Miss for 6 years and taken them to some of the most successful years that they've had in the history of their school. They're 11-1 with the playoff berth inevitable on the line and had a slim chance to play in the SEC championship. And Lane still said, I'm out. Peace. That lets you know the type of job that LSU is. But guys, I explained this on my previous podcast. You just have to listen, pay attention, and have a little bit of brain matter in there to just make it make sense. LSU has had coaches that have won national championships that aren't even on the planet and the universe that Lane Kiffin is as an X's and O's coach. Guys, do you realize Les Miles won a national championship and went back to another one at LSU? Do you realize Ed Orgeron, who was the worst coach in Ole Miss history, won a national championship at LSU? Guys, if you're an X's and O's coach and know what you're doing and know how to recruit, you can win a national championship at LSU with no doubts. There aren't any doubts. There aren't any, maybe he can. We don't know. No, if you know what you're doing and you run this thing right in Baton Rouge, you're going to win a national championship. It's just how it works. The statistics will show you. The last 3 coaches won championships prior to Brian Kelly, all by year 4. What other school can say that? And I'll wait. But that just kind of demonstrates the type of job that LSU is. And that's what I was trying to explain to you guys without having my purple and gold sunglasses on. Just look at the common factors of it. Why would he leave? Because it's one of the best football jobs in the world. Not just college, one of the best football jobs in the world. You're going to get paid tens of millions of dollars. You got a stadium that's the most raucous environment on Saturday night in sports. Saturday night in Death Valley is unmatched. I'm telling you, I've been there. I've been to other places. I've been to Alabama's. I've been to Auburn's. I've been to other places. I've seen other places. I've heard of the places. When Death Valley is rocking on a Saturday night, it is the best environment in sports. Plain and simple. Ole Miss is in the midst of their best season at 11-1, and Lane will still having to plead with the fans to come to the games. Well, that won't be a problem in Baton Rouge, buddy. There'll be 110 in the fans, in the stands, and then there'll be another 30K outside just tailgating. I've seen it. Guys, I've been there. I've seen it. This place does not play about good football. When you put a good product out there on the field, it's one of the best jobs that you can have in sports. So that's why Lane Kiffin would leave. That's why Lane Kiffin left. So why all the drama? Why all the circus? So my thoughts is this. I have to commend Lane because I think he wanted to coach his team for the rest of the season, right? So you have to blame Ole Miss and their athletic director, Keith Carter, for all the hoopla. Because it was clear that Lane wanted to coach his team at least throughout whatever their playoff, kind of future entails. Lane wanted to be there for that. But Ole Miss was just like the scorn lover. You leaving me? I don't want you to be there. And I get it. I see both sides of it. If I'm LSU was willing to let him wait, not without assurances, not without something signed. But Ole Miss was going to say, if you're leaving, you're not coaching in the playoffs. If you're leaving, you're not going to be here to coach this team the rest of the season, point blank, period. And so there was this contention of the two parties just constantly butting heads to where it was just like, I'm leaving, but here's what I want to do. And Ole Miss is like, no, we're not going to let you do that. And again, can I blame them? No, I can't say that I wouldn't have done the same thing. But that was the main gist of why all this was going back and forth. Guys, I think Lane Kiffin had made his mind up a while back that he just couldn't turn down the LSU job. Coaches don't turn down the head coaching position at LSU. They typically get whoever their number one candidate is. Now, we can argue whether or not that guy should have been number one. We've seen the Tom Herman thing. We've seen the Jimbo Fisher thing. Guys, and I told you guys, this new athletic and administration, they're aligned. So shout out to Wade Roos. Shout out Burge Osbury, who told us he was going to go and get the best coach. And guys, we did it. When can you say LSU, since Nick Saban, has had one of the best coaches without a doubt in football, schematically? We haven't been able to say that. We've gotten guys that were characters. Les Miles was a character. Ed Orgeron was a character. We thought we had something great in Brian Kelly, but we come to find out that was all a facade. He hid over there in Notre Dame behind the facade of being good and just kind of carrying on, letting everything happen and being lazy, not recruiting well, not stepping in when he should have, and it got him pushed out of Baton Rouge. But I don't want to talk about Brian Kelly. That's over and done with. Thank you, Brian Kelly, for not being great at your job, not doing a great job, and allowing us the opportunity to go and get Lane Kiffin to become our next head football coach. So now, and the press conference will be tomorrow. I'm not sure what time it'll be. I may have a reaction to the press conference. I obviously won't be there. I don't have any credentials or anything, but I will be listening. And if something comes out of significance, like he's keeping Blake Baker, Corey Raymond, Frank Wilson, like all the reports kind of say, then we will react to that. But I'm excited. I know Tiger Nation is excited. My TikTok has been going crazy. All the likes, shares, comments. I was petty enough to go back through all those comments that called me crazy. And he's going to Florida. He's playing you. Why would he leave? LSU is in the midst of Brian Kelly. All that. I went back and commented all those today because I had time today. Choo choo. Hop aboard the Lane train. It is in Baton Rouge. And I think as of about an hour ago of this recording, he has landed in Baton Rouge. So the next question is, who does he retain? Guys, go on my TikTok to look at my reaction. I'm not even making a pod about yesterday's game. It's not even worth talking about. Shout out to the defense as always. Like I've said for weeks and weeks and weeks, Blake Baker is magnificent. He has his spots now. We got to learn how to stop a running quarterback and be great at that. But other than that, he's a really, really, really good defense coordinator who I hope sticks around, who I think will stick around. But this offense, I wouldn't be mad if no coaches are retained on the offense. I'm not going to be upset. And I know there's a sentiment out there that we must keep Frank Wilson. I would like to keep Coach Wilson. I don't know if we need to keep him as an on-field guy or some kind of recruiting analyst position that they can make up for him. I would love to keep Coach Frank on the staff to recruit, player retention, that kind of thing. He's excellent at it. On the field, X's and O's, running back rotation. Guys, he was a part of the reason why we didn't see Harlem Berry a lot of the season. It was him. He was the reason why Juwan Johnson was in the game getting snaps over Harlem Berry. He was the reason in those games why we went away from Harlem Berry, because we put in other guys like Juwan Johnson. So, I mean, sure, I love what Coach Frank represents. I love Uncle Frank. He's the godfather of Louisiana and high school and football recruiting. He is an asset to the staff, and I hope that Lane finds a way to keep him on. I'm sure he'll stay. But other than Frank, I don't want to hear about anybody else. And as a matter of fact, it's already been announced that he's bringing Charlie Weiss Jr., who's going to be his quarterback coach in OC. And I think he's bringing his wide receiver coach. Last name is McDonald. He's bringing him. I think somebody said something about maybe the tight ends coach and maybe the inside wide receivers coach is coming, and another couple analysts. But he's also bringing his GM, Glasscock, Billy Glasscock. He's also bringing his strength and conditioning coach as well. And there's another admin guy that he's bringing as well. So the staff is starting to fill out some. Look, I think the big coup on offense is obviously Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss Jr. Everything else after that is icing on the cake. Those guys are going to have a dynamic, fun offense. You can already see there's some rumblings and stumblings and bubbles in the recruiting, that there's some commits, one committed to an SEC school, one that decommitted from Ole Miss, that are possibly going to flip to the Tigers soon. So there's some momentum gathering around the offense. And why would you not want to be in a Lane Kiffin offense at LSU? Guys, it is going to be the atmosphere in Death Valley next year at that first home game is going to be crazy. But check this out. We have to go to Tennessee and Ole Miss next year. That's going to be must-see TV. That week is going to be so toxic, and there's going to be so much vitriol and hate and crazy fandom. It's going to be crazy to watch. It's going to be fun to watch. But I'm excited. I think Lane's going to be the son that we didn't know we needed for this state. I think the fans are going to embrace his quirkiness, his wittiness, his smart, elegant, comments, his pettiness, his Twitter rants and his Twitter gifs and his Twitter trolling. I think LSU's going to embrace that, because if you take care of business on the field, we're going to be right behind you with all of that. Nobody supports their coaches like LSU when you win. Nobody hates their coaches like LSU when you lose. So I have no doubt that the fan base, I can just see from what I see in the fans I interact with, that everybody is excited about this hire. We cannot wait to get to next season. And we got National Signing Day coming up next week. And I guarantee you there are going to be multitudes of recruits that are interested in the Tigers on offense now. You're going to flip some guys, especially skill positions. I know at least two for sure that are probably going to flip to you at wide receiver. You're going to have interest from guys in the portal at, quarterback and running back and possibly receiver. But we got to rebuild this offensive line, which I think coach has done a great job at the portal since it's open. He's been one of the pioneers and kind of pushing forward and embracing the portal and fully embracing it. But guys at LSU, he won't have to lean on the portal like he did at Ole Miss. So I think it's a great opportunity for him. He couldn't turn it down, and the fans are excited. Now, the other side of the ball is where you have the most questions, right? Because there was sort of a domino. And another reason LSU is the job that it is once Lane made his decision, you started to see all these dominoes fall. And I'm talking about not just today. I'm talking about yesterday. Eli Drinkard signs an extension because he knows. Clark Lee signs an extension because he knows. Guys, if the job is open for those guys, they're not signing extensions at Vanderbilt in Missouri. And today, the same thing. Summerall is official to Florida because they know Lane Kiffin's to LSU. Alex Golesh is official to Auburn because he knows Lane's taking the LSU job. Pete Golden is now promoted at Ole Miss. All this stuff kind of happens as a domino because of the LSU job. People were waiting on the LSU job. These big-time coaches, these guys that were up and coming, that were going to move and make upward, moves to become bigger coaches at bigger schools. They were all waiting on this domino to drop. So now that this domino's dropped, you see, the repercussions. You kind of see guys getting their guys getting their jobs lined up because National Signing Day is next week as well. But this was the big domino in the coaching world. Everybody was waiting to see who LSU hired. Would it be Lane? Would it be someone else? I was steadfast in the beginning that once Lane was under the consideration that he would be the guy. I would have made him my guy. Go back and look at my earlier podcast. I said you make him till you know 50 times, and then you call back again. Shout out to Verge Osbury, who told us as fans that he was going to go and get our guy. And Verge, you got our guy. So congratulations, Verge Osbury. He's a lifer at LSU. He understood the mission. He understood the assignment, and we got our guy. But back to the defensive side, the big question is, what happens with Blake Baker? A lot of fans were worried once the Tulane job came open because if you don't know, Blake Baker is a Tulane grad. He went to school at Tulane, played ball at Tulane. So now that the Tulane job is open, does Tulane make him an offer to be their head coach? I don't know. I don't know that information. But I do think that Lane's going to have the opportunity to present to Blake why he would stay, and I think he would want him to stay. Guys, Blake turned his defense from 103 to like 25 in 2 years. An amazing job. And look, he gets frustrating on my nerves sometimes because they can't stop a running quarterback. But you got to look at the totality of everything. And to take this team where we were 2 years ago, one of the worst defenses I've ever seen with Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, when we should have won the championship that year, to where they are now, where they're pretty dominant aside from a couple of games. And they have missteps here, and I think Lane kind of out-schemed them. But look, that's going to happen. Offenses are just too powerful. You're just not going to shut everybody down. But this is a great defensive staff. They did a lot in the portal. They hit on a lot of guys. But I think the opportunity to have Lane on offense and Blake on defense, it's a match made in heaven. And I think if the Tigers can pull off keeping Blake on that side, then the sky is literally the limit. And I mean next year. I think this team can make a playoff next year if they retain Blake, they do some work in the portal, close out this recruiting class. I'm not saying they're going to win it all next year, but look, if we had an offense yesterday and a scheme, we win that game against Oklahoma. And I know if it was a fifth, we'd all be drunk. If your aunt had balls, she'd be your uncle. But if we have an offense against Ole Miss, we possibly win that game. So 7-5 could look like 9-3 really quickly with just a respectable offense. So we were far away, but there are simple things that could have been fixed and done to make this team be that much more competitive, especially on offense. So again, if it were me, if it's my decision, if I talk to Coach Kiffin, I'll say, Coach Kiffin, you probably need to retain Blake Baker. I think if you keep Blake Baker, then you're going to keep Kevin Peoples, who's been an outstanding coach on the edges. And I think you have to keep Corey Raymond, who's turned around that defensive back room from what it was 2 years ago to what it is now. And they gave up a bust yesterday that kind of decided the game. But I think that wasn't necessarily DBs. I think that was on Perkins. But still, the turnaround that happened in the room, we got a lot of young talent in that room. Obviously, the big one is DJ Pickett, who's pretty much tied to the hip with Corey Raymond. You got Havon Finney, another awesome recruit out of California, big corner that's coming in this class. Look at what he's done with PJ Woodland. Still have Jakeem Jackson in the room. You still have Aiden Anding in the room. You got PJ Woodland, if I didn't say him already. So there's a good young nucleus in that room. And I think you want to retain that because part of the identity of LSU is having great DBs. And I think Coach Raymond bought that back. And I think that's something you want to teach. Something that you want to keep in line. Sorry. I think that's something that you want to retain, something that you want to keep as is. What am I hearing on other positions? I'm not sure what you're going to do at offensive line coach. I just don't see how Brad Davis comes back. Cortez is not going to come back because he's bringing his wide receiver coach from Ole Miss. Tight ends coach, I'm not sure. And what do you do with Frank? Do you have him as a running back coach, or do you have him as another on-staff position, but a recruiting, an analyst type position? As far as the defense, there's rumors out there about Ed Orgeron possibly joining this staff as maybe a defensive tackle coach. I don't mind that. I don't really care. And then obviously Lane's brother Chris is going to fit in somewhere there as well. So that's kind of all we hear right now. There's not a whole lot to report at this time. There's so much going on and so many dominoes and pieces to the puzzle kind of still falling in place. But the overarching theme is that Tigers, we are back. And I think Lane's going to bring the swag back. He's going to bring the juice back. Shout out Juice Kiffin, his dog. But I think Lane's going to bring the juice back to this program. He's the coach that this program needed. He was their number one target. And shout out to LSU for getting their number one guy and never wavering on their guy. Guys, I don't even think they had a second guy in mind. I don't even think they cared. They weren't going to make a move until Lane said no. So shout out to them for getting everything together, for getting everything lined up after all of the fiasco with Brian Kelly and the governor and, the president, and then the Virgil Osbury AD thing. After they got everything locked in, they went radio silent and focused in and got their target, who is Lane Kiffin. And we have an amazing future coming up with Coach Lane as the head coach in Baton Rouge, and I cannot wait to see this offense next year. Do you get Trinidad Chambliss? Does he get a 6th year and he becomes your quarterback next year? It's going to be interesting, but make sure you guys like, share, subscribe, turn on notifications. Make sure you stay locked in with the Gold Standard Podcast. Well, we love purple, but it's all gold, baby. Good night, Tigers. Congratulations. The swag is back. Play neck.